Thousands of farmers who had converged into the city of Mumbai have called off their protest today. This was after the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, Devendra agreed to most of their demands. The state government buckled after more than 35,000 farmers reached Mumbai today, the financial capital of India. They walked more than 180 kilometers for 6 days from Nashik, which is another town in Maharashtra, despite the scorching sun, blistered and cracked feet and irregular meals. What they wanted was this, an unconditional loan waiver and better prices for their produce. They said that the state government had promised this last year and should deliver now. So while the immediate crisis may have been diffused, the larger challenge remains. For those who've grown up in India, they would be familiar with this. Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan. Hail the soldier, hail the farmer. It was a term coined by India's former Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri in the 60s. 70% of India's population lived in rural areas. In socialist India, they kept the grain silos full. They fed those who were slowly trickling into the country's big cities. But this is 2018, and India is now an emerging global economy and superpower. The state of India's farmers has undergone a sea change, and it's certainly not for the better. Senior foreign editor Padma Rao looks back in time, around the world, and at the future of India's farmers.
The statistics are impressive. India ranks second worldwide in farm output. Agriculture and related fields like fisheries and foresting account for nearly 15% of India's GDP. India is the seventh largest exporter of agricultural products, and nearly 50% of India's total workforce works the soil somewhere in the vast country. But the reality on the ground is dismaying. Agriculture's contribution to India's GDP has been on a steady decline, even as India's economy grows in leaps and bounds. And that, in turn, has led to a heart-rending trend. Suicides by India's farmers, the salt of its earth and once the apples of all Indian eyes. India began liberalizing its economy in the early 90s. Barely 10 years later, farmers began taking their own lives. In Maharashtra, the site of the current protests alone, more than 23,000 farmers have committed suicide to date. But what are the reasons for this depressing trend? The reasons for India's impoverished subsistence farmers taking their own lives is long. Water is diverted by richer and more influential farmers from canals, leading to the failure of smaller crops. Some farmers try to save their meager incomes only to lose them to scam-ridden schemes like the ubiquitous chit fund. Family problems and age-old habits like dowry are other causes. And in a country with very scant penetration of free public health services, chronic illnesses can be impossibly expensive to treat. Then there's the debt burden, usually from unscrupulous moneylenders and at exorbitant interest rates. But when the borewell the money was borrowed for fails and the harassment by those moneylenders begins, thousands of desperate farmers take the only way out that is available to them: suicide. Farmers' suicides occur elsewhere in the world too. Studies in Sri Lanka, the United States, Canada, England and Australia have shown that small-scale farmers in those countries face high levels of stress. And yet farmers in, say, the United States are far better off than their counterparts in India. There are only 2.3 million farmers in the United States, while in India there are 120 million. Farms in the States are huge, approximately 250 hectares, while a small Indian farmer usually inherits his farmland, which isn't much larger than 2.3 hectares. Farmers in the States are educated and even specialized in agriculture-related disciplines, while a lack of public schools in most of India's villages and bad connector roads means that most Indian farmers have not made it beyond primary school. The United States' farmer has access to and uses modern technology with ease. The Indian farmer has no knowledge of such technology, even if he were to gain access. It's the same with irrigation. Unlike the American farmer, his Indian counterpart is largely dependent on the monsoon and the vagaries of weather, which can often make his crops fail. The American farmer can grow several crops, while the Indian farmer can at best manage 2 to 3 a year. And finally, while the lion's share of the retail price goes to the US farmer, too many middlemen in India means that farmers work the hardest but earn the least of their produce. The farmers agitating in Maharashtra right now want the government to come good on its election promise and write off their loans. Talks are on, they may achieve their goal. But what about their future? How much longer can India's farmers continue to till the earth and yet remain bitterly poor? The Prime Minister has promised to double farmers' incomes by 2022. But there are many other things the farmers should be educated and encouraged to do. India's farmers must get a better deal. They need primary health centres, schools and good roads to connect to towns for higher education, which will also help banish practices like dowry. Farmers need access to subsidized technology to improve their yields and specialized education to understand that technology. The government must take draconian measures against chit fund scams and unscrupulous moneylenders. Bank loans with the longest payback time and the lowest interest rates must be put in place for subsistence farmers. The current farm-to-retail chain is replete with unnecessary middlemen, all of whom make money off the produce. The process must be urgently reformed to eliminate them and ensure that it is the farmer who receives the major part of the retail price. And finally, it is imperative not only for the mental and physical health of India's farmers, but also for the country as a whole to encourage farmers steeped in dogmatic traditions to switch to totally new crops and overall to organic farming. It's only then that India can well and truly say, Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan, hail the soldier, hail the farmer. Padma Rao, WION.